I was actually in a bus accident, and one of the members that were one of the kids next to me on the bus actually ended up passing away from that accident when we crashed. So it was pretty bad, but it was life changing, and it opened up my eyes to know that like life is just so short, and you never know when your time comes, and seeing someone's life taken right before my eyes so young, was definitely a huge tragedy. But it really just showed me that you have to enjoy the experiences now because you don't know if they're going to be there later, like when you're old and retired, right? Like everyone works their whole life and waits till they're retired, and then some people end up, not getting to the retirement, and so I think from seeing all that and coming out of a, really bad accident from there, I knew I wanted to do something that I could continue to travel, enjoy life, and not have to really like work all the time. And so during my college years, I would, have different little businesses to bring in some side money. I was always like dabbling in everything. A lot of my friends were like, "You're always hustling something." So from there, I got interested in like stock investing, and then I got frustrated with stock investing, and I wanted something more, that was, I guess, a little more passive, in a way where it was like a little more safer risk profile. And it kind of led me to real estate investing. I thought, I got really interested, and I thought it was a really good avenue for investing for the future. And, I enjoy building and working with my hands. I'm a pretty handy guy, so I can really do a lot of different things and tasks around the house with fixing and repairing and building. So, I thought, why don't I get involved? So in 2019, I found Bigger Pockets and the forums, and I found some Facebook groups and some local meetups in my own area. And so I went to them, connected with people, saw what everyone was doing, kind of got more interested, and learned that it's not just buying a house and renting out to a long-term tenant. That's kind of what I thought. There's so many different ways in real estate investing to like make money. So that's when it led me to, explore a little more, learn, network with people. And then in 2021, we got our first property. And that's like when it all really started.
Awesome. So your entrepreneurship and handy skills came in handy to this business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, it was a lot of my own sweat equity, cleaning and repairing and doing it all myself. Now I'm trying to tear back from that because that's my greatest strength and weakness. Because now I need to let someone else do those things so that I can scale a little bit quicker.
Absolutely. You're right. Sometimes your strength can be your biggest weakness because you're trying to do everything yourself just because you're so good at it.
Right.
So what was your first deal look like?
Yeah. So when I had first gotten it started, I had a little background in doing some sales and marketing from a side job that I had done in college to bring in some money. And so I learned that you just have to ask everyone, and if you don't ask, you don't know. So when I first started off in real estate, I was kind of asking everyone that owned, a building or two that, hey, would you ever be interested in selling? And it led me to a family member on my wife's side. I was talking with him one day, and I was like, he was kind of complaining about one of the units he owned, and I was like, hey, if you're ever interested in selling, let me know. Like, I'm, just getting started in real estate investing. Would love to like, make a deal or something. And it just sort of turns out that he wanted to kind of keep that one in the family, and so we made a specific lease agreement that he would remain in the space that he occupied, which was some of the garage space there, so that he could work on his cars and stuff, and that I would manage the whole building and take over the property, and he'd give it to me at a discounted rate so that it could remain in the family and that he could remain in his space there and everything. So we worked out a really good deal and ended up closing it. I had no clue what I was doing. It was my first one after buying my primary home. So I'd only ever bought, one house, which was my own, and we figured out how we had to put like more down for an investment property. I didn't know about any of the like the loan products that were out there. So we just did an investment loan, 20% down, and we had to pool all the money that we really had saved and just trust that it was going to work. So, we did that for the first one, and as I was learning, we ended up fixing up the unit. We updated a couple the heating system in there, did a couple major upgrades, and without knowing it, I was like basically doing a BRRR, but I didn't know about that method. I had just started learning, but by going to networks and meetups and even sitting down having coffee with one individual who was local in my market, he was like, "Hey, the rates are going up. You should do a cash out refi now that you're all done with the upgrades. Take the cash out of the unit, get your money back, have the loan, and have the rents pay for the loan." And I was like, "Never even thought of that." Oh, okay. So I did that and was able to pull more of the cash than I put into it, which was great because now I had even more money to kind of continue the snowball effect of investing for the next deal. So it was super exciting to be able to see like that whole process work out to the end and get all the money that we put into it back. And then more than we had put into it. So that was pretty cool. So that was kind of our first deal. And of course we from there we had long-term tenants we inherited. We had to raise those rents, and then we've converted from the long-term rental investing to short-term rental investing. And if you want me to go into that, that's a unique story how we did that.
Absolutely, because especially from long-term rental to short-term rental, the people are always interested to hear a couple of different things here. A, how did you think about it? B, how's this going? And C, what challenges are you facing with it? Because short-term rental can have its own unique challenges versus long-term rentals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so let's break it all down here for you. So basically, we got long-term renters in there when we first bought the property, and they were way under market. I'm talking like more than half under, the market value of what it was at the time. So we had to bump them up, and we did it in tiers. So it slowly ended up pushing some of them out. One of them left for a health reason. So we started to have vacancy. And so the first vacancy we ended up rehabbing all our, me and my wife fixed it all up, painted it, and kind of redid that unit. And we did it so nice that we were like, man, I don't know if I want another long-term renter in here like destroying this unit, but we'll see. The market was a little crazy after 2020 there when we were in 2021 the end of 2021 when we first had that vacancy. And so, I was like, all right, well, we'll post it for market rent. We put it on apartments.com. And that same week I was like learning about midterm rental units where they weren't as hands-on as short-term. I never thought short-term rental would work in my area. I always thought of Airbnb as a vacation rental. I'm like, who's coming to my rural market for vacation, right? Like probably no one. So I was like, okay, midterm rentals sounds good because at that point we had all the nurses coming in for the whole pandemic. So there was a lot of travel nurses. So I went to a networking event, learned about travel nurses, and that same day, just before I went to that event, I got a phone call, and it was from a traveling nurse coming from Texas, and he could not find housing at all in our area. And he had called me because he saw the listing on apartments.com, and he said, "Hey, would you be interested in renting out your unit for 3 months to me?" And I was like, "Well, we have a 1 year contract or 1 year lease we got to sign. I wouldn't be interested in doing the month to month thing just because I don't know what I'm doing with it yet. But I go, unless you pay a premium, of, I think I raised it like another $400 a month." And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I was like, "Man, I should have went higher." No. So then, I was like, this can't be real. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll include all the utilities for another additional 300. And he said, okay, sure, I'll pay in full. I'm like, okay, this still sounds too good to be true. I said, just because I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to actually run you as a regular tenant. So I did actually a background and a credit check on this guy, and he was really cooperative because he needed the housing. And I didn't know what I was doing, and he was willing to work with me. And I told him, the unit's empty and there's nothing in it, right? And he goes, "Oh, I know. Just need an air mattress, and I'm just going to be working a lot of overtime and going to the gym and working out." And I was like, okay, we'll get you figured out here. So nice kid. So I actually ended up picking up from the airport. We got some stuff for him at the store, air mattress and some sheets. And while he was there, I learned even more about the travel nursing. And I was like, man, this seems like a really good opportunity. Maybe I should furnish it while he's there. And then listed on Furnish Finder. And that was the first platform I went on, was Furnish Finder. And so it was really funny how we ended up furnishing it. So I didn't have a lot of money at that time, and I was like, man, how can I furnish it on the cheap? And so one of the local colleges in my area was actually going out for the summer. And so I looked online because I went to go purchase a bed and everything, and it was from some college kids at the local campus, and I went up there and found everyone's just throwing all their furniture and pots and pans in the garbage, and they had all these dumpsters full of stuff that was just perfectly good, but everyone was throwing it out because I don't think the parents want them taking it home with them. They're just like, get rid of it. We'll get you new stuff for next semester. So I was like, wow, I could repurpose like all of this and furnish a unit. And that's exactly what we did. We filled up our pickup truck. We went basically dumpster diving and we cleaned up everything and refurbished it. And really all of it just needed to be cleaned, really. And the guy even helped, wipe it all down because he was happy to have a bed and some furniture and a couch and a TV and everything. So, and then we went to the store and bought the basic necessities and essentials to have there for the kitchen. He even bought some pots and pans and left them there because he was just so happy that it all worked out. And so from there, the unit got furnished, super basic. And then we listed on Furnish Finder. We hosted a couple more nurses, and we learned that like these nurses in the midterm rentals, they really didn't require as much as like short-term rentals would. They really just want a comfortable, safe place to stay. So, if you're getting involved in something, midterm rental like seemed to be like the great in between of like not too much management because there's not a lot of turnover. They usually come on 3-month contracts and sometimes they extend. So it was really easy and it kind of ran itself for a little bit for a little while. And then it came to going into like the winter season here in November, and I remember didn't have any prospects, no bookings were coming in, and I was kind of getting worried, like, or do people not travel for the winter time? Maybe they stay home with their families because they'd have to do a 3-month contract and they'd be away for the holidays. So that's when I started looking into Airbnb. I said, you know what? Let me just try to fill this month, maybe with a stay here or there. Maybe people are coming in for the holidays to visit family. Let me just try to list on Airbnb. So, that's exactly what we did. We basically updated the unit a little bit more. I hired some designers that I met at a local meetup. We redesigned the living room so it looked really good for pictures. It was a well thought out space. We put things on the wall. It was really bland before then, so it didn't really look, appetizing for someone to or entertaining for someone to come in to stay there. Um, so we listed on Airbnb. And I remember getting the first booking and it was like a week and I was like, oh wow, this is great, and the ROI was actually a little bit more on the that month. And I was like, huh. And it just kept continuing. I couldn't even get a gap where I could squeeze in a midterm rental nurse or travel professional from Furnish Finder. So that was when I kind of transitioned into the Airbnb just by accident. I went to fill a gap and we never got off of it. And we never went back to the midterm rental really after that. We stayed on Airbnb. We started designing the unit a little bit better, put more amenities in there for people, learned how the short-term rental game worked, which was a lot different, a little more management, a lot more turnover. We hired some cleaners. We got cleaners over there so that they could do the turnover for us and we didn't have to worry about it. And it started running itself in a way where I could just do the operations from my phone as far as like maintenance and cleaning and everything like that. So it really opened up our eyes and we ran a full year with it and we're so blown away by the return on our investment there because I think like they're all 1-bedroom units. They're just bigger than like a studio, but they have a bedroom, probably about 550 square feet, maybe 600. And the market rent at the time, which was really high, was $1,200 a month. We were typically getting $900 from our tenants we had raised rents from. On midterm rental, we were probably getting like $1,650 to $1,850, but really more often than not, we were getting the $1,650, $1,700 a month for the midterm. And then we were seeing anywhere from on a low month 1,500 to probably about 3,200 on Airbnb. So almost triple of what you would get on a long-term rental. So that was what kept us going.
So 3,200 after paying the cleaners and
Um,
utilities?
no, it was probably 3,200 gross. And
Gross.
so, yeah, our cleaners, depending how many bookings, it's a pass-through expense. So when we book the booking, the cleaning fee say is like $130, and that's exactly what we pay our cleaners. So we're not making money off the cleaning
So
fee,
that
but we're not going to
3,200
lose
does not
money.
include that cleaning fee in the first place.
You know what? I think for gross numbers, I think it probably includes the cleaning fee.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So,
This is great because with this one property, you have done pretty much everything that you can think of, right? So you did the BRRR, so you rehab, you did
Yeah.
the refinance on it, you did the long-term rental on it, you did the midterm rental on it, you did the short-term rental on it. So pretty much every strategy in real estate that everybody talks about, you have implemented it in this property. Let's talk
Yeah.
numbers. I know you gave the rental numbers. Let's talk about numbers. What was your purchase price on that?
So this property we actually ended up picking up, like I said, on a really good deal because it was a family member who wanted to make sure we kept it in the family and everything. So our purchase price on this property was 150,000,
And how
which
much did you
was
spend to rehab it?
rehab. We did. I'd say we were probably just under 50,000 over a year or so in rehab. A couple of the big upgrades we had to do were like heating system, and the heating system was a substantial upgrade for sure. So yeah, I'd say we were probably 40 to 50K
So
invested for
let's say
rehab.
200K on that. And
Yeah,
you're making $3,200 just from one unit?
yeah, we are. Yeah, so I
Awesome.
think on average now, like the one unit, we're pulling in anywhere from 25 to 28,000 gross a year out of the one unit. So. And then
Okay, so
we started a second unit after because we saw the numbers, we saw how it worked. So when we had the next vacancy, we went even more crazy. So we had basically one unit that was kind of like done nice, but very like almost like it's very cozy, right? It wasn't anything, nothing luxury, just very cozy. Basic furnishings and finishes. So then we wanted to step it up to see, is there a better return going like a more luxury, higher finishes, nice cabinets, like quartz countertops, glass enclosure, shower with jets. So we did the third unit, which is the top floor unit, the smallest one actually. And we did almost a full gut job on that when we did the renovation. We probably spent $30,000 in that renovation. And this was after we kind of did our BRRR for the building. And it was a lot of money that we spent for such a little unit, but it paid off. Like the first, we just listed it last year in June when we finished renovation, and I think last year we pulled out probably like 22,000, I think, gross, and that was only operating since June. So, you're talking about half the year there. So I think we're going to see much higher number for a whole year return out of that new unit. So